When a global superpower suddenly slaps a tariff on an ally, the usual response is a reflex. The penalized country drafts a list of the superpower's exports and fires back with a counterstrike. But the United States recently triggered a massive new wave of trade measures under Section 301, a legal framework allowing Washington to enforce economic penalties based on compliance and enforcement issues. Washington reviewed the economies of 60 nations. They ultimately penalized 41 of them with a steep 12.5% tariff, and South Africa found itself right in the crosshairs. The stakes here are enormous. The U.S. is one of South Africa's largest commercial partners outside the African continent. Billions of dollars in export revenue flow through these shipping channels every year. So you might expect Pretoria to hit back. Instead, the South African government announced they won't retaliate at all. They are choosing to double down on formal diplomacy. Refusing to fight back looks like passive surrender on paper, but choosing the negotiating table over a trade war is a highly calculated move. Pretoria recognizes a shift in how global commerce actually works today, a shift that makes traditional retaliation incredibly dangerous. The United States Trade Representative is enforcing these penalties because they claim South Africa has insufficient enforcement against forced labor in its supply chains. Because the penalty is tied to specific enforcement concerns, Section 301 doesn't function as a heavy blanket tax. Instead, it's a surgical, highly complex web of rules affecting what South Africa sells. Lucrative exports like automobiles, steel, and aluminum are exempt, bypassing the penalty through pre-existing agreements. But the rest of the economy is hit hard. Broad manufacturing and agriculture absorb the full weight of that 12.5% tax. This split is exactly why a blind counterattack would backfire. If South Africa launched a retaliatory tariff, they'd risk provoking Washington to tear up existing agreements, exposing their auto and steel industries to new taxes. That brings us to the union buildings in Pretoria, where the South African government had to formulate a response that protects those key industries. Minister of Trade Parks Tau drew a firm line. His department will head straight to the negotiating table to address the USTR's concerns directly. Engaging diplomatically keeps the factories running. A volatile trade war would immediately signal instability, affecting investor confidence across South Africa's export-oriented manufacturing base. The agricultural sector is highly exposed. Farmers rely on predictable market access to survive seasonal cycles and cannot easily find new global buyers overnight. Minister Tau's diplomatic calculus is strictly pragmatic. Protecting national economic stability and securing commercial relationships has to take priority over the political optics of fighting back. This standoff between Washington and Pretoria reflects a shift in how trade disputes are resolved in a more interconnected economy. Global tariffs now prioritize labor standards, supply chain governance, and national security over simple job protectionism. By prioritizing formal negotiation and addressing specific compliance allegations, South Africa is testing a specific method for navigating these new requirements. Global markets are now watching to see if Pretoria's diplomatic approach actually works. The immediate question is whether these negotiations lead to a reduced tariff, or if that 12.5% penalty becomes a permanent cost of doing business. In a fractured global economy, strategic compliance and rigorous diplomacy are no longer options. They are the primary tools a nation has to maintain market access.